Reina successfully stole her best friend Misa's fiancé. The mother-in-law, believing her daughter-in-law to be weak, began to take over all household affairs. She objected to her daughter-in-law's suggestion of a Hawaiian honeymoon after the wedding. She insisted on a traditional wedding venue, reflecting the times. She also insisted on having the wedding on Christmas Eve. From the wedding dress and evening gown to the wedding gifts, Reina was completely in control. Even before the marriage was finalized, the mother-in-law treated her daughter-in-law and her son differently. She only provided her daughter-in-law with inexpensive, discounted beef, while preserving the expensive, high-quality ingredients for her son. These experiences were originally Misa's fault, but to ensure her marriage to Tomoya went smoothly, the often hot-tempered Misa had to compromise. But Reina had already set the wedding date and venue, and her biggest concern now was that only a few guests would show up on the day. Although every colleague at her former company had received Reina's invitation, they all knew Reina's character and behavior well. Considering that her first wedding couldn't go wrong, she finally humbled herself and approached Misa. Reina pleaded with Misa to use her connections to help invite some guests to the wedding. To help reconcile Reina and her ex-boyfriend, Misa gladly agreed. Misa also agreed to Reina's second request, to invite Misa to speak on stage. Having accomplished her goal, Reina's face lit up with joy as soon as she stepped outside. Those who take others' kindness for granted often struggle to have true friends. After Reina left her apartment, Misa contacted all her colleagues one by one and called every high school classmate. The wedding day soon arrived, and Misa arrived on time, dressed to the nines. Seeing that everyone she had invited had arrived, Misa expressed her gratitude for their help. She then noticed that the classmates who had once ostracized her had also arrived. Happily, these former classmates had put aside their past prejudices and hostility and apologized to Misa for their past misconduct. With Wataru's help, Misa and the others successfully entered the wedding venue. Everything that had happened today was transferred directly to Reina. Misa then began her speech. In the first half of her speech, Misa primarily expressed her admiration and gratitude for Reina. In the second half, Misa turned off her microphone and said something different from what she had said earlier. Without stopping, Misa resolutely turned and left, slowly strolling through the deserted streets. Suddenly, Wataru approached, holding a coat. To protect Misa from catching a cold, Wataru suggested finding an indoor place to rest. However, after searching around, all the places were fully booked, as it was Christmas Eve, a special day. Since Wataru's house was nearby, Misa arrived quickly. As soon as she opened the door, Wataru turned on the heater and went to the kitchen to make her some hojicha. While Misa was there, she noticed that Wataru also kept a small turtle. However, upon closer inspection, the turtle struck her as remarkably familiar, a resemblance to her former, taciturn friend. This scenario seemed almost impossible, but then Wataru revealed the truth, giving her a huge surprise. It turned out that it was Wataru who had rescued the turtle, a friend of Misa's. Misa couldn't hide her joy, tears welling up in her eyes. Seeing this, Wataru considerately handed her a handkerchief he had brought with him. After calming down, Wataru showed Misa the Christmas tree he had meticulously built. The two of them gazed out the window together, admiring the beautiful view. Seconds later, the air suddenly filled with an air of ambiguity. The two couldn't help but slowly approach, their eyes meeting, their gazes fixed on each other. As expected, they embraced and kissed passionately. Though the wedding had concluded successfully, Reina still wondered what the profound meaning of Misa's final words were. Today was the couple's housewarming day. Seeing his wife sitting alone, unassisted, Tomoya, tired from moving, asked her to help. However, Reina immediately thought of Misa, who could be of service without compensation. But to her surprise, when she called, the number was reported as unavailable. Reina opened their chat history and discovered that Misa had recently left the group. Then, she checked her social media accounts and discovered that she had also been blacklisted by Misa. At this point, Reina sensed something was amiss. She went to Misa's apartment in person, but it was completely deserted. Then, with a sudden inspiration, she logged into Miku's social media account. Discovering that Miko had just posted about purchasing ingredients for a New Year's Eve party, Reina deduced that they must be together. Using the pictures above, Reina found the address and spotted Miku and Tanabe entering a mansion together. Inside, Wataru and Misa were working together, methodically preparing everything needed for New Year's Eve. As Wataru handed Misa some freshly cooked fried chicken, Reina, perched on the rooftop across the street, watched the scene unfold. Instantly, memories flooded back to Reina, and she realized that Misa had been deliberately trying to prevent her from approaching Wataru. Reina believed that Misa had maliciously defamed others and spread rumors about Wataru's promiscuity, ultimately leading to her complete disillusionment with Wataru. Reina speculated that Misa's goal was to eliminate her competition, while she had been secretly approaching Wataru. Reina believed that her acquaintance with Tomoya was also due to Nisa's introduction, and that Misa had fostered a deep bond between them, ultimately leading to their marriage. Reina was convinced that everything Misa had done before was intended to introduce her to her fiancé. Then, Reina successfully deciphered the meaning of Misa's words on their wedding day. Looking at the two people happily enjoying each other upstairs, Reina was so angry that her back teeth almost broke. In Reina's mind, these items that should have belonged to her had been secretly taken by Misa. Reina vowed to take them all back. The next evening, Section Chief Yuriko, along with Misa and Miku, returned home and were surprised to find her husband sharing a room with a newly hired university student. Misa stared at the scene before her, which was exactly the same as the one she had experienced before her rebirth. Misa couldn't help but wonder, could it be that the tragic fate she had once endured had now been transferred to Yuriko? According to Misa's memory of the events of her past life, Yuriko would have gone to the balcony and called her husband's parents. At this point, during a heated argument, her husband lost control and cruelly pushed his wife off the balcony. Misa realized she couldn't allow such a thing to happen again. Finally, with Misa's help, she pushed the man to the ground. However, her friend Yuriko suddenly felt a sharp pain in her heart, lost her balance, and fell straight down the stairs. Yuriko was then taken to the hospital by Miko and Misa for treatment. From the doctor's conversation with Yuriko, Misa was struck by how familiar the scene was. Isn't this exactly what she had experienced before her rebirth? Could the cancer have truly metastasized to Yuriko? This was not the outcome Misa had expected. Meanwhile, as Tomoya finished work and prepared to return home, he encountered a group of debt collectors at his doorstep. To avoid violence, Tomoya quickly sought shelter and waited until the suspects had left before returning home. His newlywed wife, Reina, prepared a delicious dinner for him. Reina also told him that she had visited a real estate agency earlier that day. Reina then deduced that Tomoya had not paid the down payment for the house. Reina further deduced that Tomoya's claim of strong investment skills was untrue and that the entire situation was a scam orchestrated by Misa. After further questioning, she learned that Tomoya had confessed that Misa had paid the down payment. Tomoya had tried to keep the secret from Reina, but Reina felt that two of her closest friends had colluded to conceal the truth. Reina then learned from Tomoya that she had relied on investment advice from a senior. In less than a year, Tomoya's investment had been wiped out, and he was also 26 million yen in debt. Upon hearing this, Reina realized that Tomoya wasn't as good as he appeared, but rather a perfect image deliberately created by Misa. Misa's true intentions were now clear. She was simply trying to pass on her abandoned boyfriend to Reina, forcing these two delinquents to marry. After realizing this, Reina engaged in a series of madcap behaviors. She first added a large amount of chili pepper to her dinner and then drank cold drinks instead of water. In Tomoya's mind, he married Reina because she claimed she was pregnant. Now, Reina was acting in ways that could harm the unborn child, and Tomoya rushed to intervene. However, Reina explained that the pregnancy was a fabrication, and her true purpose in marrying him was to win him back from Misa. Reina had always thought Tomoya was a wonderful person, but she had never imagined he was so deeply in debt. At that moment, Tomoya's world collapsed. If she hadn't told her mother about her pregnancy, Tomoya wouldn't have broken up with his ex-girlfriend. Then Reina told him everything, saying that their marriage was all orchestrated by Misa. Reina believed that Misa had orchestrated their marriage so she could be with Wataru. As soon as she finished speaking, a familiar voice rang out. It turned out to be her mother-in-law, who had been eavesdropping. Upon learning that Reina's pregnancy was fake, she collapsed to the ground, motionless. Watching this, Reina laughed maniacally. Even then, as soon as the medical examination results came back, Yuriko told Misa about her cancer diagnosis. At the same time, Yuriko was planning to have Misa replace her position. When Yuriko went to apply to the higher-ups, she happened to run into Wataru. Wataru then learned from others that Yuriko had resigned due to cancer. That evening, Misa, having just finished work, called Wataru and said she had something to tell him later. While they were still on the phone, Tomoya suddenly appeared with a bouquet of flowers. Tomoya blamed Misa for his current misery. Tomoya said that if it weren't for Misa's meticulous planning, his life wouldn't be so miserable. Then, Tomoya repeated his old tricks, insisting that Misa show him the luxury apartment where she lived. Tomoya was immediately rejected by Misa. Just as he was about to flee, Tomoya stopped him. Tomoya threw the flowers he'd bought at her, and the two of them began to chase each other. Misa was exhausted, so Tomoya quickly grabbed her and threw her to the ground. Seeing that Misa still had some hope of escaping, Tomoya pinned her against the guardrail. Tomoya desperately strangled Misa, and it looked as if she was about to suffocate. Wataru arrived just in time to save her, but Tomoya himself held him in a tight stranglehold. Tomoya believed that if Wataru hadn't appeared, his girlfriend, Tomoya, wouldn't have broken up with him. Tomoya blamed Wataru for all his problems and exerted all his strength. In the nick of time, Misa pushed Tomoya to the ground. After both sides recovered, Tomoya, realizing he was no match for her, stopped fighting. Tomoya uttered a harsh threat, threatening to make the two of them restless. After the brutal encounter, Wataru quickly took his beloved to another apartment. With Misa's meticulous assistance, the wounds from the previous fight were meticulously cleaned and bandaged. Afterward, Misa confessed the secret of her rebirth to Wataru, including how she was pushed down the stairs by Tomoya and Reina, and the unfortunate experience of having cancer before her rebirth, which had now spread to her best friend. Wataru knew all this, but to protect Misa from further foolishness, he offered the most heartless words. They were to never meet privately again. Soon, Reina made a new move, meeting privately with a mysterious man at a large factory and assigning him some matters.